Reports of AEW security running backstage in the middle of AEW All Out have sparked speculation of a potential backstage incident. We do have more knowledge about the situation that kind of clears things up a bit more. We're going to talk about what went down. I was there on the scene in Chicago, AEW All Out 2024. Not only a place where security were running all over the place, but where violence was the word of the night. You had multiple segments that are among the most gruesome and insane things that I have personally ever witnessed right before my eyes or in professional wrestling. We're going to cover all of the fallout from All Out right here in this video, so be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right, first things first, let's talk about the quote-unquote backstage brouhaha. So many of you will remember that 2 years ago, AEW ran the Now Arena. This was the last time they ran a Now Arena before this week, and that was the location of CM Punk's Gripe Bomb, him going off on Hangman Page, the Elite, and Colt Cabana. Well, many people were speculating that something similar may have happened in terms of a backstage incident. Well, what happened was during the show, and I noticed this as well, and I was kind of like a little bit sketched out by it, but I assumed it was just a fan or something that had happened. But anyway, during the show, security ran backstage. The security that was actually by ringside, you could see two of them run very, very fast backstage. And for me, I was like kind of taken aback by that. I was like, oh, something's happening. I don't know what it is. Again, I assumed that perhaps a fan had gotten backstage and maybe that was the reason why. And then we have later on in the night, the AEW media scrum with Tony Khan was a very weirdly outlined one. Usually how it goes is they'll have a very brief pre-show with the little panel, then they'll go into questions and answers with the media and some of the talent who won that night, and then Tony Khan. But it was about 40 minutes of the post-show panel, and then Tony comes in and he answers about 3 or 4 questions and leaves, which is very, very out of the ordinary for that. And that led to a lot of speculation that there was a backstage incident. Well, here's what we know. The word is, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com, he is one of the most well-sourced people on all matters professional wrestling. He says that this is a big nothing burger. He looked into it, and he said he would have an update, and on Twitter he said it was a big nothing burger, and it seems to be the case that it's a lot of, I think, wishful thinking or unwishful thinking, whatever you want to call it, on the fans' part. And the reality is that there does not seem to have been a backstage incident that took place. That is probably a good thing. Again, my mind did not immediately go to, oh my God, someone's fighting backstage, or there's this big thing that's happening. Tony Khan is under attack or something like that. I was like, it was late in the night. Fans get rowdy, all right? Fans get rowdy at wrestling shows. It happens. You know, you have a couple, and then before you know it, someone's running to the ring, or someone's running backstage. Like, it very well could have happened. Like, it's literally like a curtain that kind of separates the backstage area and the little atrium that the fans are in. So it's very possible that someone just could have, like, ran backstage. That's what I assumed. Again, I'm not sure if that is what happened, but again, my mind never went to, oh my God, people are fighting and AEW is under attack, whatever. No. So it does not seem to be that's the case. What was the case, though, was AEW All Out 2024 was a violent, violent, violent night of professional wrestling. One of the most insane, crazy, whatever you want to call it, shows I've ever seen. And it was almost a perfect contrast to All In. All In was a show that was meant to be feel-good. You had the feel-good ending of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, winning. You had this feel-good moment of Sting, you know, coming out in Wembley and people singing Seek and Destroy. You had all of these wonderful moments. Nigel McGuinness returning to professional wrestling, Ricochet's return, and then All Out just 2 weeks later is like the evil twin. All Out was violent. All Out was visceral. All Out was hateful. And people almost died in both kayfabe, and you could make an argument in reality, because some of the stuff we saw was crazy. I will get into it, specifically the Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley stuff, as well as the Hangman Page Swerve stuff. We're going to talk about that at length. But other things that stood out on the show, Pac and Will Ospreay had a freaking insane match. If you've not seen it, highly recommend you check it out. This proved precisely why Pac is one of those guys which, no matter what, he is perennially going to be like in that main event level tier, because whenever he needs to get hot, he has the ability to show up in a big time match. And that match was insane. The crowd was going crazy for that match. Absolutely great. Another match that I thought like was a bit of a show stealer was Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale, Chicago Street Fight. It got bloody, it got bruisey, it got bad, and these two prove that they are among AEW's like top like hardcore wrestlers. Like, they've been doing it. I've seen them on Rampage have insane matches like this, and it was great. Other notes, Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada had a stare down that had me jumping out of my seat in the Now Arena, and I absolutely thought that was spectacular. And we got a tease for Christian Cage cashing in his title shot. So, could happen, did not happen on the show, because the Blackpool Combat Club were there. Oh, the Blackpool Combat Club were there on the scene to try to stop that. And there it is. Let's start there. Blackpool Combat Club runs off Christian Cage, helps Bryan Danielson get up. They celebrate, and then immediately Claudio Castagnoli delivers an uppercut to the American Dragon. And Bryan sits there, not in pain, but shocked. And he almost like no-sold the uppercut. But I thought it was even better because he just looked at Claudio like, what? In just utter disbelief that one of his best friends, his Blackpool Combat Club brethren, had just turned his back on him, basically. And then we get Jon Moxley coming out of nowhere with a plastic bag, wrapping it around the head of the American Dragon, suffocating him, and doing so in a visceral, violent manner. All the while, Wheeler Yuta looks on and is being held back by Pac. And I thought this was just crazy. I mean, look, I'm a Bryan Danielson fan, as y'all know. I was going insane when this was happening. And it was so crazy. We've been hearing Jon Moxley talk about Bryan indirectly over the past couple of weeks. He had that line in there where he's like, some people like call themselves champions or whatever. Like, you think you can call yourself a champion? And now like it seems to be clear that he was talking about Bryan, and it's clear that the Blackpool Combat Club as we knew it is done and over, because you have not only Pac, Claudio, and Jon Moxley, along with Marina Shafir, who came in to run off security during this segment. But you have, on the other side, Wheeler Yuta and Bryan Danielson, who absolutely devastated. Bryan, they were playing it up like Bryan, like, literally had no oxygen flowing. They were like, they weren't even waiting for the stretcher. They were carrying him to the back. It was one of those, like, the most visceral things I've seen in a wrestling storyline. It harkens back to, I believe it was like NWA, WCW, 1998 or 1989, excuse me. There was a similar angle with, of all people, Terry Funk, who took a plastic bag, put it over Ric Flair's head, and choked him out. And we know, like, I've said this for a while. I think I see a lot of like Terry Funk in Jon Moxley, especially like this version of Jon Moxley post WWE, like in AEW. And I think that's what he's been going for. And this is like a great nod to that. But it's clear that Moxley wants Bryan in some capacity. And I think part of the conversation, he's been talking about like having a conversation with Darby Allin. I think part of that is asking him or demanding him to give up his spot, his number one contendership, at AEW Grand Slam against Bryan for the title. I think that is what Moxley is after. There's a lot that's going to be told, a story that's going to be told, on Wednesday Night Dynamite. We need to hear the why. But it is clear that you have a contingent of guys that are making it known that this is not your company, you're being Tony Khan's company anymore. And the interesting thing about that is, like, one of the immediate thoughts I had after I processed this was, you look at the guys who turned, or everyone who turned in this: Moxley, Marina Shafir, Claudio Castagnoli, and Pac. All WWE guys, all former ex-WWE guys in some capacity. Wheeler Yuta has not been in WWE. Bryan Danielson is as close to, even though he's a WWE guy or a former WWE guy, I don't want to say he is a WWE guy, but as a former WWE guy, he is the closest person to Tony Khan there is on and off screen. So there's like that kind of separation that maybe Jon Moxley drew the line in the sand, like, oh, okay, like you're going to be part of Tony's AEW, which I think that's clear. Like he has been kind of hinting towards, like, this is not Tony Khan's company anymore. I think that might be why he was very buddy with the Elite on Wednesday Night Dynamite last week. We, again, still don't know, but all of this screams to me that an invasion of some sort or a takeover of some sort is coming. And it seems to be much bigger than that of just the Elite. I think lines are going to be drawn, and if we're looking for a figurehead on that side, I'm just saying there's been a lot of talk about Shane McMahon. That would be the guy. But this was an insane thing, and kind of went with the very violent theme that would culminate in the main event, a lights out steel cage match, Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland. Genuinely one of the craziest things I've seen live. I don't know how to explain everything that I saw in this match, but there was a cinder block. There was there were cinder blocks. There was the usage of barbed wire ad nauseum. There was just so much carnage and action in this. It was insane. I go back and watch the match if you haven't already done so. But the way it kind of went was these two kind of built up kind of like upping the ante on each other in this match. And it built up to not only a table spot, but Swerve pulling out a real cinder block. This is not one of those like powder cinder blocks that disintegrates upon, if someone touching it. He made a point. He picked up that cinder block and he dropped it on the ring and he said, "This is real." And he did a vertebreaker on the cinder block with Hangman Page that scraped the hell out of Hangman's back, proving that it was a real cinder block. At one point, Swerve got power bombed in one of the most disgusting ways I've seen on the cinder block. They went out of their way in this match, like to show you that this is essentially the spiritual successor of their Full Gear match, and then some. That the hatred has only grown since then. Like, you had an inverse of what happened in the last match where Swerve took the staple gun and he actually stapled pictures of his own family to Hangman's face. And it was almost like, like Swerve was the heel at Full Gear and Hangman was the face doing that. Now the roles are kind of reversed. So insane. I know I've said that a lot about this, but it is hard for me to put into words what I saw. Trying to do that, though, I think it's obvious. Like, the story was like, who is going to hit like that kill shot? And like, that is what this was always building up to. Like, the kill shot. Like, each of them hit their moves, each of them hit their finishers, and everyone kept kicking out. This was a match that did not just require a move, that did not just require you to pin your opponent. This required you to hit something that your opponent couldn't recover from. Something more than just a traditional finisher. And I thought the finish of this match was insane because Hangman Adam Page it did something that I never thought I would see in a professional wrestling match. He took a needle. He took a needle, like a vaccine needle. We don't know what was in there, but like he took a needle. After removing Swerve Strickland's grill, he injected the needle into Swerve's cheek, and it was a gross scene. And after that, Swerve was loopy, unconscious. My assumption is that there was some sort of sedation involved in this storyline. It's crazy the fact that I'm saying this. I don't even know. But that is the assumption that I'm making. So that kind of weakened Swerve. And then Hangman Page hit the hardest steel chair shot to the head, unprotected steel chair shot to the head I have seen. Now, this obviously brings up a conversation about chair shots to the head. I have always been against like those unprotected chair shots to the head. It seems that AEW does rig these in a way that, you know, wasn't done in wrestling in the past. In the past, it was like the chair, hit me with it. This is, you know, these chairs are usually shaved down when they do this, so it's more of a cookie sheet kind of effect. There is still like a blow to the head. We need to be clear about that, but and over time, a lot of those can do their damage, certainly, but it is nowhere close, you would assume, to what was happening back in the day, because that was literally like steel folding chairs, boom, metal folding chair to your head. These, they shave it down to be very, very, very thin. And they've done this a few times. They did it a few weeks ago with Jack Perry. They did it, obviously, with that Cody Rhodes, Shawn Spears thing in the beginning of AEW. The way they shot this, though, was interesting because I thought it was just in the arena, but then when I watched the show back on the plane ride over, I realized that when Hangman hit that kill shot, when he hit that steel chair shot, and that ended the match, the referee said, all right, he's knocked out, it's over. When that happened, the camera kind of just did a wide shot of the ring, and it zoomed out right as he hit it. And I think that may have been deliberate because they do not want to have the lasting image be that chair shot to the head. And it's weird because when I watched it back, I was like, it's almost like more impactful because it's like you hear that chair shot and you know what happened. You know what happened watching that. And then you look at the aftermath, Swerve lying there just unconscious out, and Hangman contemplating everything, and you know what happened. Like it almost makes it feel more. This was a match that promised violence. This is a feud that was built on violence and upping the ante and seeing who can be more evil than the other. These two burned each other's houses, or Hangman burned Swerve's house down. Swerve broke into Hangman's house, threatened his child, brought up his pregnant wife. Ain't no feud in wrestling like this. This is the best feud in wrestling, period. And what these two did is going to be remembered for a long time. I'm not sure whether it's for better or worse, but this was an insane match. AEW All Out, like I said before, violence, carnage, and almost like, I don't want to say despair. It was like a very like, you felt like this was a negative show watching it. And I'm not saying negative as in, oh my God, it was a bad show. I'm talking about negative as in like, whereas like the aura of other AEW shows have been very positive. Like the aura of this show was, man, evil won tonight. And I think that's really what it is. Evil won tonight. The darkness within us, whether it's Hangman Page or Jon Moxley, whoever, the darkness won. Tune into Dynamite to see what the hell happens next. Guys, insanity. If I had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give this show a 9. I thought I really enjoyed it being there live. I haven't seen the full show on pay-per-view, on the television broadcast fully yet. I've only seen the Bryan match and Swerve, but I've seen everything else live in person, and it was a great time. Highly recommend going to Chicago for a wrestling show whenever you can. The crowd is always great. It's a great city for professional wrestling, in my opinion, the best city for professional wrestling. But guys, let me know in the comments section what you guys thought of AEW All Out 2024. There's going to be a conversation about whether or not it went over the line. Did it go over the line for you? Should it have been drawn back a little bit more? Let me hear from you in the comments. Also, if you haven't already done so, do me a massive favor. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.